4, 3, 2.
Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Jeff from Junior Hockey
5,
Advisor.
4,
Hang on.
3, 2.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go on the road for 4 or 5 days and you drive all the way back from Minnesota to Western New York. I am running on coffee and adrenaline and very little sleep right now. Hey, welcome to the Junior Hockey Advisor Sunday night, which is Monday night because of the travel broadcast. We are here to help you understand the game. I'm Jeff Colson, and we're here to help you understand the process more than just the game. We go through all the different things that help you move from 16 to 18, from 18 to juniors to prep, from prep to juniors to college. We're here is a source of information, mostly unbiased, and I say that because I do have a position inside of a Tier 2 team working with a team. So not quite unbiased, but pretty close. We are not an advisory service. We do not represent players. We're here just to give you information across the board. I saw the comment come in. Wow, long drive. Absolutely long drive. Hey, do me a favor. If you're on, whatever site you're on, make sure you jump on with the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. I already see that we've got Pembroke, we've got Pittsburgh, we've got Topeka. We've got a lot of places already on. That's our normal audience. Small audience, I kind of expected that. We're up against Monday Night Football, and we're also on a Monday night instead of a Sunday night. So with that said, let's crack a couple of things. I got so many things I want to tell you about and I want to walk through and work. So first of all, I thought I'd tell you about the trip. I thought I'd tell you about kind of the inside of what it's like to be a coach, a general manager, in my case, a director of player personnel, a scout, what it's like when you go to these big events. Now, this is a big event, 8 rinks, actually 10 rinks, because they have all of the National Sports Center, which is 8 rinks. If you haven't been to Blaine, it's kind of like I guess it's as close to what we have as a Midwest Olympic Center training facility. They have the velodromes for the cyclists. They have tons of soccer fields. They have indoor sports that are more of the Olympic style sports. And then of course they have the hockey rinks that have 8 rinks. The women use it, at least up until recently. I'm not sure if they're still using it this year. Use it for their Olympic training, and their national team members use that rink as a home base. At least, like I said, up until recently. I can't tell you if that's the case right now. However, it's a phenomenal experience. I'm reading comments as they're coming in. Go Bucks. What Bucks? Why would we say go Bucks? Explain yourself. Why the Bucks? Not sure why somebody's putting go Bucks up. Anyway, let's roll with what it's like. So the event starts, I think this week I got there Wednesday, and the first NAHL games start, and the teams play 4 games. They play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So all of the Nahl comes into town, and for most of the Nahl teams, this event is their kickoff. This is their first. They've had some exhibition games. A few of the teams had a couple league games before this, but not many, 1 or 2 games, and there was only a handful of teams that had that. So it's the beginning of the season, but it's dress rehearsal, and it's the only time until playoffs where you have cross-division games. So the South gets a chance to play Midwest, gets a chance to play some teams out of the Minnesota, Wisconsin, Midwest, the East, and you don't normally get that. You don't get that opportunity any other time of the year in this league. You go back to your division and you play through your division. So right off the bat, you if you're in my position, you get to the rink, you let the coaches do what the coaches do, and we're doing several things. We're reconnecting. There is a big lobby area that has food and coffee and drinks and water So you're reconnecting with everything from other scouts to other coaches, GMs, owners, and college coaches. And by the way, I was tickled to death. This is on a personal note. I actually have 4 former players that are now 3 at the Division I level coaching and 1 at the Division III level coaching. Actually, I have 1 in the pro ranks too. And my nephew just stepped down from an AHL coaching job. So I'm in that room thinking, wow, this is kind of cool. Yeah, and I'm very old. You stick around long enough, I guess these things start happening. But to have 4 coaches in the NCAA ranks and 3 of them in the D1 ranks that actually played for me, not that I had anything to do with their development, because I always look at it that no one coach has anything to do with development. They get a chance to play, or I get a chance to coach them for a year or two. That is not, where they got it from. But I would say that it maybe shows a little bit on how you choose your players and what type of person you're looking for as a player. And if you're looking for cerebral players, that's the guys that use the brain. That might actually show. So maybe that has a little bit with how we recruit or have recruited in the past. So anyway, get there and we watch our team. We meet with the coaches afterwards after they've done their film, their video later, and we just discuss the team. We discuss how our draft picks are doing, how our tenders are doing, how the young guys are doing, the veterans, and right off the bat, that you have to understand that this is also a chance for a lot of coaches and general managers and owners to communicate and do it quickly, because they're seeing each other, they're talking about their strengths and weaknesses, especially because you get to talk to the teams that you don't face in your league. And what that does and what that allows you to do is actually talk about your roster, strengths and weaknesses. So there's a buzz. There's 3 or 4 teams that were staying in the hotel that I was at, and there's a buzz. You'll see a group of coaches huddled down in the lobby, and they'll be like, well, so-and-so's team is looking for this, and so-and-so's team's looking for that. What do you think? And, these are all murmuring. They're not talking when the players are around. This is more of a closed discussion. So that's what happens. The first day you get going, you talk to the coaches. You kind of just get the lay of the land, because I'm not around the team every day. I show up, basically I show up for playoffs. I show up for pre-draft, main camp, and Blaine. So I'm with the team 4 times a year, possibly 5. The rest of the time, we're on Zoom calls, we're on phone calls, we're texting. So this is also exciting for us when we all come in from the field to get a chance to see our end product, because we had a lot of influence on how that roster looks. So next day, we switch gears, because as the event goes on, the U18s come in, and the U18s, 16s and 18s start playing. Now, our organization doesn't spend much time on the 16s. You'll see the USHL pull in and watch the 16s a little bit. So you got some USHLs, and you get some of the Division I colleges. This place is chock full of coaches. It's chock full of advisors. It's chock full of just a ton of D1 guys, just a ton of USHL guys. I shouldn't say a ton, but there's a good showing for the USHL, and there's also a showing for advisors. You'll get a ton of advisors there too, and they all come and go. Not all of them stay Wednesday or Thursday through Saturday or Sunday. They'll show up for a day, or they'll show up for 2 days. And it's also a good chance for the Division I coaches and the Division III coaches to reconnect. This is a game about connections. This is a game of from the coaching and management side of things. It's a game about who to not only help your players, but to help your career. So you got a lot of young assistant coaches there that want to make sure they just keep making all those connections around and making sure everybody knows they're there. And they see them working hard and energetic, because it's going to help their career as they go on. So that's what's going on. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of fun activities after 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night. But during the day, it's pretty go. So we, as an organization, and most organizations work something like this, we dissect what games we want to see. We break down the 8 rinks, the 10 rinks if you count Fogarty, which is about 2 miles away. And we decide what games, I know what games I'm going to watch. My counterpart knows what games he's going to watch. Our scouts that can't be there in person have got hockey TV up, or they're going to watch the game later if they're at their day job, and they'll watch the game later. And we kind of try to network across the board. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a macro list to get down to a micro list. Now remember, why is this important for Nahl teams? Blaine, why is Blaine important for Nahl teams across the board? It's because it's a first chance for us to get a look at all the NAPHL teams. Remember, Nahl teams have the ability to pick and tender directly from that league. We're going to tender and we're going to draft from the NAPHL. By design, we have tenders that we can only use in the NAPHL. And I'll talk about the NAPHL in a second. But what's important about this and why it's important for the players and for us is it's our first look. It's our first look. So we want to, if we know there's a strong team, we want to be on that team. If we know there's some strong players, we want to be on that player. Now here's, from a player or a parent perspective, this is important to know. I have on my cell phone all of the connections. We use RinkNet. All the teams use RinkNet. I have all the connections of a list of players that reached out to us during the prior week, the prior 2 weeks, the prior 3 weeks about Blaine. Hey, coaches, I'm going to be playing in Blaine. If you get a chance, here's my schedule. Or I know I'm going to be in Blaine. If you get a chance, can you watch our team? I think I can contribute next year. Can you come watch our game? So not only do we have our list of players we want to watch, but we've got a list of people that reached out to us. And that's where it's important that most people drop the ball on, because you don't care how you get on a list to get watched. And I'll go back to the example I gave earlier. Many broadcasts I've said this, and I'll say it again. If there's a game with two teams with 21 people on a game, there's 42 players there. Okay, if I have a list of 3 players, 4 players, 5 players that I specifically came to watch, that's going to eat up most of my time. I'm not watching the macro ice. I'm not watching behind the play to see what this guy's doing or that guy's doing. I've got specific guys that I'm trying to watch, and I might be watching them on the bench. I might be watching for interaction in the stands if they're being coached by their parents. I'd be watching the interaction on the bench to see how they're working with their teammates and with their coach. There's a lot of things I'm looking for that little nuance to pick up a little bit about their ice time and off-ice personality. But if you email me, it happens to be the same game, I got you on, it's in another column, but I got you on the list. And once you're on that list, I'm going to watch you. Now, am I going to watch you as intensely as I'm watching the players that I already knew about, that for whatever reason, one of our scouts, one of our coaches, an advisor suggested him, or we watched him last year and we want to continue to watch him this year? All those things factor in. That player might get more of my time, but you're sure as hell going to get more time than somebody that never reached out to me. Okay? You may have the best game of your life. You might have a 5-point game. First of all, I'm not sitting up there writing down points if I'm watching player A, B, C, and D, and I'm trying to catch every one of their shifts. You could be doing something over here while my eyes are over there. There's only one set of eyes. We don't bring 5 or 10 people so we can watch every single person. By the way, any scouting service that says they watched a game and they've got scouting reports on 34 players, and they watched the game 2 days ago and they've got scouting reports on 34 players, think about that. Unless they've got 12 people in the stands, I just don't believe that. Be careful with that kind of stuff. So the bottom line on this is you can do yourself a big favor just by reaching out to scouts, coaches, GMs. If you're working with an advisor, say, hey, I'm going to be playing in this event. Who do you think I should be reaching out to? What teams do you know that attend that event? A good advisor has the rhythm. Oh, hey, look, you're going to get a lot of Nahl guys there. You're going to get a lot of USHL guys to that one. You're going to get this group here. You're going to get some Tier 3 coaches there. You're going to get D3 coaches here. They know this stuff. Good ones do. And they'll be able to help you, guide you to which teams you should be reaching out to. So hopefully, this helps a little bit. And so this goes on all weekend. I'll get to questions here in a second. I see some great questions coming. In fact, I'll grab one right now that I just got to scroll back and find it. The question was, here it is. How deep is your prospect list going into the event? 10, 100? That's a great question. At the end of the year, our prospect list is well over 500, 800 players total, because every one of our scouts, our coaches, the 2 player development coordinators, we all have our own lists. Then we combine our lists into one. We force rank that list. Everybody force ranks it first, and then we start breaking it down by region, by who we can continue to watch, what our needs are. So into this event, we come in with very little names because it's the first event of the year. I think I probably had I had 3 teams of about average 5 players a team that I had circled players that I knew coming into the event. I want to see him. Oh, he's playing for them now. I want to see him. So I came in with a light number, like 15, and I'll explain why that number's light too. And then I had about 8 players that reached out to me. So I made sure that I watched those games too. Now, if you're playing on a last place team and it's a super weak team in the NAPHL, I might only give you, a period or less that I'm watching you specifically before I move on. If I don't see anything there, I'm not going to watch a whole game. And if I say, the player's 86 pounds and he's 5'1" and he's using a straight stick because he doesn't know if he's left or right-handed. Okay, I'm moving on. Okay, and I'm being a little facetious, but that's part of it. Now, why so light this year? Well, so light because we had some major significant teams that are not playing in the league this year. We saw, to give you a couple examples, North Star Christian, which was a top team, has always been a top team in the nation. They're not playing in the league anymore, and we lost one other team. Help me out if you're out there and you know, but there's another one of the more powerful teams that I'm losing it right now because I got so much going on that I want to talk about. So with 2 or 3 teams down from a normal group, Chicago Reapers, the Reapers were out also. So there's 2 teams that had significant amount. I mean, both those teams had a lot of tenders and draft picks coming off of them last year, and would have had tenders and drafts regardless of their NAPHL status because they were strong teams. So with those 2 teams out, there's a lot less top end talent. That's 2 less teams to watch on the top end. So all the more reason to consider the NAPHL if you're not playing for a top tier 1 elite, top HPHL team. Playing on a top NAPHL team, the one thing you have to know is that contraction of the teams in the NAPHL, especially top teams. There's still what do we got now? 29, 30 teams in the Nahl. That means that we're all going to be using 1, 2, 3 tenders in that league, depending on how many you have, trades, whatever the case. Average to a team. So there's 60 kids that are going to get tendered. Okay. Nobody wants to waste the tender. They want a player that's going to make a roster or really have a significant shot of making a roster. So playing in that league, the contraction may be very good for you for next season. So you might want to keep that in consideration a little bit. So anyway, my day is set up. I'm watching games all day. Fortunately, last year I didn't watch our junior team play after the first game of the weekend. The way the schedule lined up this year, I was able to watch our junior team play. So that also helped on just getting an idea how well we did. How many players are still there that we tendered, how many players are still there that were drafted, how many free agents moved in. And that's the biggest thing people don't understand is that free agent part, that main camp free agent. Don't believe a person that says that main camps are worthless. There are kids on every roster that were not tendered and drafted that go to main camp and make rosters. I can't say it's 100% across the board, but it's a significant amount of teams. I would say easily 70, 75, 80% of the teams in the league that I'm closest with have players that were unrestricted free agents in main camp that made rosters. They're coming from the CCHL, they're coming from the AJHL, they're coming from the BCHL, they might be coming from Europe, they're coming from different places, but it enhances the competitiveness of the main camp, but they actually make the roster. So you have to say, if I didn't get drafted, if I didn't get tendered, I can tell you right now, Ferris State, I'll give you a perfect example. Ferris State, and this is for the USHL, but the example still works. The team captain, Scotty C., this is going back a few years, defenseman, came out of Detroit, came out of the Honeybake program, I believe. He was not drafted in the Nahl, not drafted in the USHL. He walks into the main camp for Chicago, makes the roster. he ends up being the captain at Ferris State when Ferris State had a really powerful team. It happens all the time, okay? It happens all the time. So never let anybody tell you that that's not the case. So, all right, let's go say hi to some people, and let's make sure that we are. We said hi to Pembroke. Good to see you guys. Pittsburgh, good to see you. Topeka, good to see you. Yes, it was a long drive. Thank you for telling me great work. I don't know if it was great work on the drive back or that you like what we're doing. Anybody want to claim this Go Bucks? Is this a Ohio reference? What's the Bucks? I'd like to know what that is. South Lion, good to see you on. Great games at Blaine, so much fun. Absolutely was great. Steve from Baldwinsville, thanks for saying hi. Tony from St. Louis, good to see you too. Somebody just said hi, Jeff. Sometimes the Facebook pages, yeah, Buckeyes. That's not, yeah. Hey, I don't care right now. We're 3rd and 4th in the nation. We got a few weeks to go. Let's see how this plays out. All I know is it's been like 1,000 days since Ohio State has beat Michigan in football. So, whatever that number is, it's a long time. It's been a very long time. So, okay. Canada, but my son is playing in the U.S. Good to see you on. What advice would you give a U14 goalie playing in Eastern Ontario? We'll get to some of that a little bit later. Not ready to answer those yet. We'll stay on the topic a little bit here, and we got one more topic to discuss, and then I'll jump out of that. Okay, here's a great question. Does the Nahl Central Scouting evaluate every kid in attendance? I don't know. I really don't know. I would assume that they try to. I know that I sat a lot on the first 4 ranks, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and many times I was sitting in proximity to a couple Nahl coats. So sometimes they had 1 or 2 guys per game, and they're working furiously. They're taking lots of notes. I would assume that they're trying to get something on every player. I'll try to get an answer on that, but I don't work directly for the Nahl. I don't have an answer to that, but I'll gladly look into that to see if they do get notes on every single player. I can say that I would imagine that the vast majority got covered. But remember, there's going to be kids on the bench that may only see 1 shift a period or maybe only see 1 shift a game. And if that's the case, they might not cover every single kid right away. I would hope over time that that's the case that they do. So let's see what else we got on here. Northern Cyclones, New Hampshire, nice to see you coming on. Hey, John, good to see you in Ohio. Yeah, now you show up as a Facebook user now. I'm not sure why that is the case. Do you rely on the Nahl Central Scouting? So here's the question. Do we rely on Nahl? Every team works differently. We have a pretty extensive scouting staff, so we don't. We have probably the most connected coach in the league with colleges. And so we get a lot of information, just a ton of our information comes back from colleges on players that they like and they see. So not only do we have advisors, and we have just a vast array of Division I, Division III coaches that are working via mostly our head coach, but sometimes through me, sometimes through our associate head coach, to give us information about players they like. And then we're tracking those players down and following those players too. Then, of course, we have advisors over here, and then our staff. And our staff is taking all that information and also watching other players. So we don't particularly watch as much. I think there's some programs out there that have smaller staffs and coaches that are wearing multiple hats that don't have the ability to watch as many players. Maybe they're using central scouting a little bit more than we are, but it's definitely used. It's just not used by us. I hope that answer helps a little bit. Do you recommend getting an advisor or an agent? Okay, once again, that's a little bit later on. We'll get into those questions about that. So I want to show you something. I think this is important. Most people don't understand this. All this information is right in front of you if you look for it. And what I mean by that is it's information about how Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 work. So I'm going to take you to a website first, and I'm going to jump onto a website right here. Let's get you up here. Okay. So this is, I want to start over here. This is the protected list. This is USA Hockey. If you go to USA Hockey and you get into the junior section off the usahockey.com website, you can pull this up too. So let me go back one page here. And it gives you the protected list for Tier 1 and Tier 2 with the USHL, the North American Hockey League, and the NA3HL. Why is this information important? Well, today, and I'm going to jump over it. Keep this. We're going to come back to this page, but I'm going to jump over to the USHL website. This is right off of the USA important dates section of their website. On their website, if you look here, today is September 19th. Today's a big day because whatever their number of rostered kids were, teams must make necessary drops by 12 p.m. Central to get to their 25-man protected list. It's right there in front of you. You can see exactly all the dates that are significant for the USHL. Why is it important to start with the USHL? Well, today they're cutting players. Now, if you look, and we're going to go now from the USHL site, we'll go back to the USA Hockey site. Okay, we're back magically. Boom. That list right there is our USA Hockey protected list. Now, because this list is getting jammed with people using it, it's probably going to take me a second to load it because it's been that way all day. Why? Because coaches are looking on that list. Parents and players are looking at this list, and I just don't believe it never gets. I don't think it gets this much use all year long. Today's a big day for the protected list. Okay, now this is every team up here. It lists every single team. If you see this up here, you got Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Dubuque, Fargo, blah blah blah, across the board. All your teams are listed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Including these two over here, which happen to be your two USA Hockey rosters. Now, here's why this list is important. You see right here, you don't have to do anything except for go to the title. Cedar Rapids at 26. Now, that means they've got 26 players rostered. You say, oh, they're one over. Maybe. We'll get back to that. But just going through this really quick, Des Moines already at 25. They weren't earlier today. Dubuque's got a few to make some adjustments and trims on today. Fargo's got to make some trims, maybe, and I'll get back to that. Green Bay's not in any problems. They've already trimmed. Lincoln is down to 21. I'm not sure why they're so thin. 25, Madison sitting there. 23, Muskegon. 24 with Omaha. You can see every single team. Most have already done their work for the day. Sioux Falls, 27. Now, there are teams that will be, after this deadline today, there will be teams on this list that'll still be above 25. Why? It's because you'll see over here in this far column, for example, let me get a team that's got more. Okay, for example, Fargo. Fargo's at 27 here, but over here you see they've got an injured player. That injured player will show up on the IR list, and it won't be counted against their 25. So it looks like they still have to trim one player, but they don't have to trim two because they've got an injured reserve player right there. And, well, get it above where my little picture is. See that little thing where the arrow is right there? That's the date of the player was put on injured reserve. So you can go over the number, but as far as players that are eligible to be rostered for your current games, this is very important. So as you're looking at this and these lists get trimmed down, you can see most of them have already trimmed, but there's players that are going to be available. Well, where do those players go? They're either going to the North American Hockey League or to the Bchl, and maybe a few will sneak into your top teams in the NCDC, but that's not a normal path. So you've got this list here that helps you understand that. Now, you go over to the Nahl Game Center. This is down the North American Hockey NAHL website. Now, if I go in here and I go to Game Center and I go down to transactions, I can see that over today and tomorrow, there's going to be a flurry of activity because they're also in the trim process, but they're also trying to accommodate strong talent coming from the USHL. So you'll see ads. You'll see a ton of ads. You'll see some trades that are being made. Those trades were probably discussed this week during the showcase in Blaine. And, you got Johnstown and Danbury. They're both in the same division. That's kind of interesting. But you can go back and look at everything that's happened over the 16th, 17th, and 18th right on the Nahl website. And you can see, if you just want to look at one team, and let's just we'll pick Amarillo. I can just look at Amarillo and see what Amarillo has done. So Amarillo is not too active right now. And now, I know I'm jumping around. If I jump back over to that USA Hockey page, whoops, that's the USHL. Here's the USA Hockey page, and I'll flip over to the Nahl protected list. Now remember, you have your roster that you see on your website or wherever you see it. That's not the same as the protected list. That roster you see that's posted on a team's website, that really doesn't mean a thing. The roster that's important is what is actually on the USA Hockey protected list. So you might see 28, 30, 32 players that are listed because affiliates or kids that were cut. They can all show up on your website, but this is the page. Now you see all the different teams. This is the same USA Hockey website, but now you see the protected numbers here. Aberdeen's under at 24, Amarillo's at 25, Anchorage is well below, Austin's at 25. So Nahl is in pretty good shape here, and you won't see, I don't think you're going to see much variance. Remember, El Paso's got a couple injured players, so that's why their number is above 26. And I hope this helps. I hope this helps you understand a little bit about how things happen here and why they happen. This is extremely important to know. Once again, this also is an easy way just to pull up rosters and go, where are these kids coming from? Here's their old team. So now I can look at a Nahl team and say, where do they come from? Oh, this kid came from the Blue Jackets. This kid came from a junior team. This kid came from a prep team. This kid came from the Nahl, from another team in the Nahl. Or no, he's a veteran there. This kid came from a prep school, U18. You get a really good flavor of where those players are coming from, and it's very helpful. So, all right, let's go back and look at some questions now and see if I can help you out there on the questions. And let's get me back up to full screen there. Okay. All righty. So let's go in and check what you have to say here and what questions you got coming up. So I answered that about the prospect list. I hope that helps there. Answer the question about the Nahl Central Scouting. Okay, this is kind of out of our rhythm, but we'll jump on this. Do you recommend getting an advisor or an agent, having a 2004 goalie, having stellar junior ID camps, yet lesser goalies getting roster spots? Well, remember, eye of the beholder. Having stellar performances from a perspective of a parent, from a perspective of a player, perspective of what the needs of a team are and what a team is looking to do. A lot of times in 04, depending on what league you're trying to get into, it could be, for a USHL, they might only be looking at 05s right now because they've got a strong 03. They want a development goalie to back up and to be able to grow, so they're looking at 05s. Now, I'm just making that up. I don't know that for a fact. You might also see that the coaches are only looking for 02s and 03s because they want senior leadership. They want some veteran, skill sets, strength, size, just maturity across the board. And so you may think that you're outperforming a kid, but that kid's a steady performer that's been around the league or been around leagues for a few years, and coaches want that talent. So do I recommend getting an advisor for an 04? I don't recommend either way. I think it's a personal choice on how much you understand about what you're doing to market your player, how much time and effort you can put and elbow grease you can put into marketing your player, and how well you understand this. Now, if you watch the 100 and some odd hours of material I've got out there online, you might be able to actually piece this together yourself and have a real comfort zone. If this is your second or third go through this with your kids, maybe your fourth go through where you've had older siblings, maybe also you can get involved with doing this yourself. If you're overwhelmed, if you're at an impasse, if doors aren't opening, then you reach out to an advisor and you have that assessment first with that advisor. And if that advisor tells you, in the first 15 minutes of the conversation, oh, I can get you here, I can get you there, I can get you there, that's not the kind of assessment you want. You want somebody that, to be honest with you, you should hear no from more advisors than you hear yes from with an 04 goalie. The reason is because they're either full with their 04 goalies and they don't have room to take you on, or they're so niche in what they do that it doesn't fit for what your area where you're trying to get to. So a good advisor says no a lot, and I've said this over and over and over again. If it were me and I'm trying to hire an advisor right now, I don't mind if I go 2 for 10 out of the 10 quality advisors I'm talking to, because hearing no is a good thing. That means they're not going to waste my time or not waste your time. They're going to be specific. Yes, I can help you, or no, I can't help you. So do I think you can use an advisor? I think everybody could use an advisor, or most players could use an advisor unless everything lines up. Having older siblings absolutely helps a family not use an advisor. Having a parent that played also helps. Having a member that's in the coaching world or in the recruiting world, in the college world of hockey helps. And all those cases are very common, but I can't answer a specific, should you personally get an advisor? All I can say is, take your time and do it right and get an advisor that's going to actually be able to specifically help you in your needs. And once again, if they want to accept your check in their first conversation without doing their homework, unless they say, hey, look, I've watched your kid play 15 times. I've seen him play here. I've seen him play there. I watched him play against this team. He stood on his head over here. He really should, or he crapped the bed over here. Then he's really watched you. And then if they say, I want to represent him on the first conversation, that's different. But if it's a cold, conversation, meaning they don't know anything about your player, if they're not taking the time to go back and do some homework before they say, yeah, I'll represent them, then it's really not worth your time, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion on that. Number 2, agents. Bad word if you're trying to keep your NCAA eligibility. Only family advisors. And I'm going to share something else with you all in a second. I'm going to save that to the end, and we'll get into a little bit about where you can get good information on that too. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. I hope that helped a little bit. Question is, do you track tenders and drafts that have been cut? Absolutely. It's not uncommon for somebody that was tendered or drafted to not make a team. There's going to be a certain number of players that just don't make it their first go round, and they need seasoning. They need to go back and figure it out a little bit more. Now that they've actually got, maybe they went through, they got tendered or drafted, then they went to main camp. Maybe they went into the fall and they did a couple exhibition games and they were trimmed, okay? Maybe it's youth and there's only so much room for youth. Maybe they just didn't really catch on to the level of intensity at the Nahl level. It's not uncommon for a Nahl team to hand you a 3-ring binder with everything they want. This is the first time most players are going to have serious system play. And what I mean by serious system play is exacting detail, face-offs where your angle of your skate, where your stick position is all tracked on video. Remember, at this level, you're getting video back on every shift, and you're getting it back the night of your game. And your coaches might expect to meet with you that night to go over every shift. So you get it on your phone. It gets sent to you, and you get to see all your shifts. You get a chance to breeze through them real quick. And by the time you're done, for example, this weekend, the coaches had 2 separate rooms set up, and they were meeting with every player that was in the lineup to talk about their shifts and to talk about the system play, what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. that was every player on the roster. That's a lot of intensity. And some players that come out of youth, or they're coming out of prep, or coming out of other junior programs where you might have a face-off player or two. You don't have 10 or 12. You might have a forecheck or two, but you don't have 5 or 6, and you don't have them adjusted during the game. You play at the higher levels, you get a lot more intensity and you get a lot more exacting detail. Now, I happen to be part of a program that is known for being extremely strict on their discipline and how they play the game. So it might be a little bit more. You might only get a 2.5-inch binder with other teams where we're given a 3-inch binder. Not every player can play in that system, but yes, to answer the question, we're tracking those players, and there's guys in the past that make it back into the program to come back in. It happens all the time. I think we've got 3, maybe 4 guys that we tracked after last year that came back into the program and are part of our program this year. So yeah, that does happen. It does happen quite a bit. Okay, great question. Does this list, or the list I show you, include affiliates? So let's go back to the magic board and I'll show you something. This is not the one I want. I want the USHL. Okay, if you look on here with USHL, it actually tells you down here at December 31st, this is last day to add free agent non-affiliate players playing at the high school or midget hockey. So your affiliate list is not due till December 31st, but for younger players, October 11th, if a team has 5 2002, this is for the senior players, I'm sorry, the older players. If you're carrying 5 02s, that's your last year in juniors, you got to drop 1 and get down to 4. I believe they've got that number up here. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought they did the same thing with the younger players where you had a drop date on those. We definitely have it on the older players in the USHL. So anyway, the list is right there. It explains it all down to a T. Affiliate numbers are there. Affiliates, this time of year, coaches might use that as to dangle in front of you. Well, we might want to affiliate you this year. Most teams aren't even worried about their affiliate list yet. They might be, compiling a list of potential affiliates, the scouts, player development guys, the assistant coach. But that really is going to come to play a month or so down the road, where affiliates might start coming in. You got to get your team set. You got to get these kids confident playing with each other. They've got to be in a rhythm before you start bringing kids in. You start bringing kids in too early, it starts upsetting the apple cart with the guys that are rookies right now, because they're not comfortable yet in their role. They're not comfortable being in the city that they're in. They've got to get completely immersed and have their confidence that they're a member of that team before you start rolling a couple of affiliate players in to practice with a team every week. Now, that will happen mostly November, late November, December. That starts to start bringing guys in. But you do it too soon, you're really going to have some confidence issue with your younger players and your rookies, because these are guys that they're playing U18 like they could be playing U18. They might know them, and they're wondering, are they bringing this guy in to replace me? Which 99% of the time is not the case, but it's still not good for confidence. You got to build that roster first. So hopefully that helps. Would you say, here's a question, would you say, let me put my mug back up there full screen. Would you say NAHL and BCHL are relatively equal, or is one a notch above the other? Okay, it's a great question. Okay, in mass, the NAHL is much larger in their production of Division I hockey players. They're number 2 overall. But if you look at ratio per team, the BCHL might have a slight edge. Honestly, I haven't done that number for this last season yet, but usually that number is close. They're relatively close on how many. The BCHL just had a record number of NCAA Division I talent, and it's a transitionary period for them, because once they left they used to be a member of a 10 league organization called the CJHL, which is part of Hockey Canada, and it's their junior A level. So you got major, and then you got junior A. Once they stepped away from that last year, there was a lot of speculation. They did, harm their brand a little bit when they stepped away, because people didn't know what was going to happen with them. There was rumors that they were going to join the North American Hockey League. There was rumors they were going to join the USHL. There were rumors that they were going to join the NCDC, which would have been really bizarre. But, the rumors were out there that a lot of things were going on. They ended up just staying independent. I'm not really sure what they gained from that, but they lost trust from a lot of Division I programs that would have normally said, hey, you, Mr. Prep guy, why don't you go play in the BCHL? A lot of those kids ended up going to the USHL or the Nahl that would normally be playing in the BCHL. Not all of them. They still have quite a few, and they still will track. Now, what's the difference? The Nahl is a little bit older. The Nahl is more of a seasoned league, and the guys that get their last year commits are guys that are 21, 22 years old. Okay, 20, 21. Sorry, 20 or 21 years old. The BCHL usually has a lot of one and done players. What's a one and done? You're playing at a really good prep program. You go play in the BCHL for 1 year, boom, you're off to college, which is not uncommon. There's still a lot of great Canadians and Americans, less Americans, and that was also affected by the pandemic. The pandemic had a lot to do with parents just going, we're not good. Well, see, another thing happened. During the pandemic, the BCHL tried to stay relevant. They tried to keep their teams and retain their players. So for well over a month or two, it became pay to play for those BCHL kids. The team stayed up there. They trained together, but weren't playing games, but they had to pay for it. So a lot of people said, I'm out of here, and they jumped ship and they went elsewhere. So they haven't, because people didn't want to be in a foreign country during the pandemic. It was a two-way street. Not as many Canadians came down, not as many Americans went up. So I think that brand has been damaged a little bit. It's still an incredibly good league. And if you compared it to all of the other Tier 2 leagues, Junior A in Canada, across the board, the AJHL, the BCHL, AJHL, MJ, SJ, Northern Ontario Junior Hockey League, the CCHL, the OJHL, the SIJHL, the Maritime, and the Quebec League, you compare them to all those different leagues, they're still the best league there. Their numbers and their production is amazing. So that's why it's extremely important. I can't stress this enough. When you see these polls, now some of these polls come out from people that are in the know in the junior world, and they've got one BCHL team, or they rank the leagues and they rank the BCHL as the 13th best. There's one poll out there that's got the BCHL as the 13th best Tier 2 league out there. And they've got, so many leagues above them that's it's crazy. No. There's still a top 3 league. It's still the USHL, the Nahl, and the BCHL, and then everybody else. And usually that fourth place team, statistically this is, and if you polled everybody that was just at Blaine, the D1 guys, the pro guys, because there's a lot of NHL guys, a lot of NHL guys at Blaine too, you poll them, they're going to tell you the same thing. USHL, BCHL, Nahl. If you're staying eligible for college, those are your top 3. Then right after that is going to be your AJ. Then you're probably going to get into your CCHL, OJHL, and once in a while the SJ, Saskatchewan or Manitoba will jump up there too. Then you're probably going to jump into your NCDC after that. So it's easy to figure out. All you have to do is track how many players are getting committed, not how many they start the year with, but how many fresh commitments they get throughout the year. That's going to tell you a lot about how good the league is. So if the league is just pumping out commitment, this kid's committing, that's awesome. Okay, and the difference between some leagues, and I'll be very blunt, there are great teams in the NCDC, but they started out great. And what I mean by that is the New Jersey Hitmen, I've said this numerous times, can play with anybody. They're that good. They can play with anybody. They're chock full of NCAA Division I talent. They're good, okay? But there's teams in the BCHL that start off with 3 committed players, and they get 10 new committed players. They get 10 on one team. The whole NCDC will get 10 or 12 new commitments in one season. Let me repeat that. It's verifiable. You can go look this up yourself. You can look and see how many fresh commitments are coming in. One team in the BCHL or one team in the Nahl will do as much as far as fresh committed players is the whole NCDC. Now, once again, there's good coaches in the NCDC. It's a very top-heavy league. You're always going to see the Boston Junior Bruins up there. You're always going to see the Hitmen up there. But as far as fresh commitments, not so much. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense because, that's all verifiable. You can look all that up too. Okay, so hope that answers the question about, no, I would not. If you get a chance to play in the BCHL or the North American Hockey League, if you got multiple offers or you got multiple choices to go to, you go to the team that you think is going to compete at the highest level. You go to the one that has the most stability as far as their coaching staff. You go to the one that produces the most players. There are Nahl teams that will produce 4 or 5 each year. There's Nahl teams that will produce 8 each year that just pump out Division I commitments. Same with the BCHL. So I'd rather play on a top team in either one of those leagues because I'm going to get more eyes on me. And remember, if I'm playing on a team that's already got some commitments and it's got a history of just pumping out commitments, that means that coach is connected. He's talking to coaches all the time. If I'm on a bottom team that gets 1 or 2 commitments during the year, and that's going to happen in any league, there's going to be a couple that only get a few Division I commitments. That means there's not as many colleges watching that team. I want to be on a team that's got lots of colleges watching it, lots of track record and history of putting players into multiple colleges, not just 1 or 2. Okay, so the next question on there is this the same for the NA3HL? So, okay, there is a protected list at the NA3HL level. Before, when the EHL was still part of USA Hockey, they would have the same thing. Now, I can't tell you about those non-USA Hockey things because everything I showed you about protected lists is through the USA Hockey system and their portal, which is also tied into the IIHF, which is the International Ice Hockey Federation. So there's one way that's completely top-down, bottom-up, legitimate worldwide. There's other ones that these kids are playing on. They used to call them a rogue. They used to call them outlaw leagues. There's more legitimacy to these leagues now than there used to be. The NCDCs and the BCHL, but they used to be called outlaw leagues. So those leagues have a different level of rules. They do things differently. I can't tell you when their deadlines are. I don't know. But now the NA3HL protected list, yes. Don't know the number off the top of my head on what the NA3HL protected number is. It's probably still going to be 25. But you will see NA3HL teams carry a few more players than what's protected. And what they'll do is they'll move a player into the lineup that's going to play if he's not protected. Usually there's a fairly honorable system of not attacking an unprotected player in the NA3HL. So if I'm if I'm in the stands and I'm not on the protected list, the coach puts me on the protected list after the game on Friday, and he wants to play me on Saturday. The guy that comes out, usually, the other teams aren't, attacking that kid as a free agent. They're allowing the team to move players in and out. It's not always that code of honor, but you'd really, really have a hard time being a coach or a general manager or an owner in the league if you're stealing guys that were unprotected at the NA3HL level. So the reason why there's extra players is, the NA3 team will carry up to 28, 29, 30 players, and that's all for fiscal responsibility. They're trying to keep the place floating. They're trying to actually keep the team profitable. And if you're running at 23, 24, 25, usually that's tough to make a living at, and so they carry a couple extra. Not saying every team does, but a lot of teams do. So hopefully that answers that question. How are we doing on time? We're rounding up to an hour. I'm going to see. So I think you answered this already. Is there a similar list for the USPHL and NCDC? Can't tell you. They're running. They run much more of a non-open system. It's much more of a closed system because they're private. There is no governing body outside of their league, so I can't really answer that. So this is a trickle down. Does NA have a cut day like 9/19 for the USHL? The NHL cuts slide into the NA3. So yes, this is a trickle down system. You can see that the NA is already at their numbers. The USHL has got one more pop here, which is today, and then you're going to see more trickle down. Now, normally you could see. Remember, there's half the amount of teams in the USHL. So if one kid gets cut, you saw there's not many. The majority, at least half, if not the majority, of the USHL teams are under their number already. But there's still 8, 10, 15 kids out there that are going to get trimmed. Where are those kids going to go? The majority of those kids are going to go North American Hockey League or BCHL. That's where the majority are going to go. Could they end up anywhere else? Can't answer that. So what happens to those Nahl kids that get cut? Could they end up in the NA3HL? Yes, they could. Some are guys that came up on a tender or a draft or as a free agent from a NA3 team, did really well enough to get into 4 or 5 games of the season, and then they're going to drop back down and will just be a tremendous stud at the NA3 level. There's other guys that will go to the Ncdc. That's a very popular place to go if you're an NAHL cut. You'll see a little bit go to the EHL, and then you'll see quite a few go into the Canadian junior leagues, and quite a few will try to match up on other NA rosters. Now, if you're cut, it probably means you're either a rookie or you have no quote-unquote value yet in the league, meaning you don't have any statistical advantage. If I'm a guy that's got 20 points last year, I'm probably not going to get cut. I'm going to get traded, and the other team is going to give me tenders or draft picks or another player. If I'm already at my number and that's why I need to trade you, I'm going to try to trade for a tender or a draft because I don't know how to add to a roster that's already full as far as my protected list goes. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Ashning, good to see you in New York. On how much contact? Let me get this question up here again. Sorry. How much contact is too much contact from a prospect? That could be one of the best questions of the night. I get contacts from the ideal one for me is I like the little update. Hey, coach, just wanted to give you an update. Had a great weekend. I scored 2 goals. Here's the 30-second clip of my 2 goals. I love that kind of clip because then I can add it onto his file. I can check it out, and I'm not spending an hour trying to watch a whole game to figure out where they're at. I don't have to pull up the game sheet and then match the game sheet up to the video and then try to, if you're going to do update and contact, give them some. You got to give them something. Saying, hey, I had a warm bowl of Wheaties this morning. That doesn't do, or oatmeal. That doesn't do you any good. If you had a great weekend, tell them about it. If you didn't have a good weekend, don't tell them about it. Don't send anything. If you're going to a big showcase, tell them about it. I'm going to be at this showcase. If you're playing the number 1 team in the nation and you know you're going to play well, meaning you've got confidence you're going to walk in there, say, hey, we're playing the number 1 team in the nation on Saturday. It's on Hockey TV. I'll let you know how it goes, but I just want to let you know that if you get a chance to watch it. Hey, if I know somebody's playing the number 1 team in the nation, at U16 or U18, I'm absolutely going to get that video and watch it to see how they do. That'll tell me a lot about the player. So, yeah. Now, remember, at the beginning of the year, rankings don't mean that much. You got to build up some data. So whoever is number 1 in the nation now, there's a good chance that 5 weeks from now they're not going to be in the top 10. So I wouldn't be going around bragging for the first few weeks that you're playing or I am on the number 1 team in the nation, or we're playing the number 1 team in the nation, because it really doesn't mean that much yet. Okay, let's see what else we got here. 2023 is 2005 eligible for NHL draft. Chances of player getting drafted out of U18. You're going to know about them already. If there's a player that's at that level. Now, don't get confused with being on an NAHL, or excuse me, I do this all the time, a NHL watch list versus a draft eligible player. You can be draft eligible at U18. You can also be a player that is on a NHL watch list, meaning their central scouting has put you on a list where they say, and there's usually a couple hundred kids that are out there that are junior or U18 eligible, or U18 that are eligible for the draft that are on that watch list. That list is ever evolving. A player can pop off. The list comes out several times during the year. But you'll know, you'll hear, you'll read about the kids that are lighting it up at U18. It doesn't happen very often to see a kid. You might see some goalies that get drafted out of U18, but getting drafted out of U18 is rare these days. It's just not as common. It used to happen once in a while. But you're going to see more kids come out of prep because they get that one extra year in the prep schools, or you'll see them come out of juniors. But you'll see a lot of college freshmen too, the younger freshmen. You say, well, college freshmen, if you played remember, the rules for that elite player, the guy that's going to get drafted into the NHL, they're only playing 1 year in the USHL. Then boom, they're jumping right in. They're playing at the National Development Program through U18, and they're jumping into college, and they're playing college hockey as a freshman. Boom, and they're getting drafted. So you're going to see them. The majority of the young players, that National Development Program, that's where the majority of the kids that are getting drafted that are U18s are coming from, and there'll be a ton. There'll be 15 kids come out of that program drafted. So that I guess the answer is yes. You can see U18s being drafted, and they're technically U18s. They're playing on a U18 roster, but they're in the National Development Program. The rest are going to be in the USHL. Very few will come out of the Nahl. Nahl had a good year this year with a few, but we're talking single digits in the Nahl, single digits in the BCHL, high double digits in the USHL, double digits off the two national development teams working together there. So hopefully that helps. Any speculation on the rumored West Coast-based Tier 1 junior program? Whatever they were doing, it kind of fizzled out. I don't know where they stand. I don't really give it much credence till it comes into play. So that's all I can say is I just don't really give it much credence to anything else. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Would watch this over Monday Night Football every time. Wow. Either you really have to get a life or you really hate Monday Night Football, because if I'm the option over Monday Night Football, whoo-wee. So anyway, that's about it for tonight, folks. This was awesome. You guys did a great job of contributing and helping out and keeping this live. Now it's time for some plugs real quick. Please stay with me for some plugs. If you're not on our YouTube page, Junior Hockey Advisor, as a subscriber, please go there. There's information that gets put on there that doesn't necessarily always make it on to our Facebook pages, but you should really also be involved with our two Facebook pages, Junior Hockey Advisor, the discussion group, and Junior Hockey Advisor, the page. Two different places. Please subscribe, like, follow, do all those things. You can also follow me at Jeff Colson. I'm on Twitter also. Use all those sources. But YouTube really needs the help. We're still trying to grow that YouTube group. If you want individual help, we do what's called the chaos calls. Chaos calls are where one-on-one with me, we spend 1 hour discussing whatever impasse you're at in whatever part of your player's career. We discuss that and we try to work through all the options. Once again, not an advisor, because what I'm not doing is representing you to teams. I'm not representing you on any other issue. We're just walking through the issue or two that you have to try to move on to the next level, trying to explain how the process works. You can DM me. You can go to our website, Junior Hockey Advisor, and lock us up there. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of you take advantage of that already. I kind of become kind of like the hockey psychologist sometimes. Sometimes it's just nice. Even those of you that have advisors use me, and it becomes an ear. It becomes I lay you down on a virtual couch. I get my pipe out and my plaid jacket with the little patches on the shoulders, and I listen and I draw pictures while I'm listening to you talk, and it works out really well. So once again, those are chaos calls. They work really well. Follow us on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.